FL Studio's step sequencer has a hidden Euclidean mode, so let's take a look at how we can use that to create some interesting Euclidean sequences. To access the Euclidean sequencer, right-click on any channel on the channel rack, and then select Advanced Fill. And then in this Advanced Fill pop-up, under Fill Type, select Euclidean. Alright, so let's talk about what exactly a Euclidean sequencer is and what we get over here. So there are three main parameters we get to adjust: the sequence length, the active step count, and also the sequence rotation. And you notice that as I adjust these parameters in real time, the channel rack will update to show the sequence. Now a Euclidean sequencer tries to keep the active steps as evenly spread out as possible. So in this particular scenario where we have 16 total steps and 4 active steps, it's very easy for the sequencer to evenly spread it out, and we get this 4 on the floor Sal pattern. But things get a lot more interesting when the step count doesn't evenly divide with the sequence length. I'll change the step count to 5. And now you can see, since we have 16 total steps, it's impossible to spread them out equally. So the Euclidean sequencer tries to evenly spread it out as much as possible, and when it can't, there will be a little bit of an unevenness in the rhythm. So let's have a listen to this. Let's switch over to another sound. By clicking over here, I'll switch to this FPC Ice Crack sample. And by default, we're back to 4. So that's a really interesting rhythm. Let's leave this as is, and let's switch to this woodblock sound. And let's change the step count again. We can also adjust the rotation, so it doesn't have to start on the very first step. That's nice. Let's move on to this other sound here. I'll change this to 6. And then let's move on to the very last sound here. Instead of changing the step count, let's change the sequence length. So currently all the individual channels are same at 16 steps. I can make this 17. And now things are getting even more interesting. Here's another example where I've set 2 of the sounds to have a different sequence length. So you can see here channel number 2 is set to 14 and channel number 5 is set to 12. Let's have a listen to this. Now this sounds pretty cool, but one very important thing to keep in mind is when we reduce or increase the sequence length for individual channels, we're not really changing the time signature for that one channel. So if you look at this channel 5 over here, I've set it to 12 steps, so it ends over here. And then what happens is that the sequencer still needs to fill in these 4 steps, so it just takes in the first 4 steps from the sequence and fills that in. So technically it's still a 16-step sequence. It's just using the first 12 steps that I've entered and just looping it. Now to get a true polymetric pattern, the sequence will have to stop at 12 steps and then start back up immediately. What's happening over here is that it plays the first 12 steps, and then for the last 4 steps to complete the 16-step sequence, it just uses the first 4 steps from the 12-step pattern. So technically that doesn't make it a polymetric pattern. Having said that, it still sounds pretty interesting. We also have this randomize option, which will randomize the active step counts for the selected sound, that is. Let me go ahead and randomize something else here. Let's hear this. I think we have too many steps on this very last sound here. Let's randomize it further. I'll go back to the very first kick drum sample. Let's randomize this one as well. And maybe I'll just offset it. Once you're happy with the pattern, hit accept. And now you have your Euclidean sequence saved in the pattern. Alright, so I hope you found that helpful. Now, if you are new to FL Studio and would like to learn the DAW in a methodical way, I would suggest checking out my 12-week course on Berklee Online, where I go over all the fundamentals of making music with FL Studio. We cover a wide range of topics from MIDI sequencing, audio recording, mixing and mastering, sound, and even video synthesis. I put a link to the course in the video description, so have a look at that, and I'll see you in the next one.